So tell me, what would you guys do to change the culture? If all three of you got in right now, what would be the first thing that you would do to change the culture of FCPS?
Restore the focus to academics and take the focus off the cultural issues.
How would
I,
you do that?
I
How
think
would you
that
go about it?
you would remove the teaching of the racial division. You would remove the gender ideology. We no longer teach our children to memorize math facts. We no longer teach our children to have spelling tests. We're focused on learning genders, taking time out of, and this is a true tell the story that you were going to tell and didn't have the opportunity to about the woman whose child was not allowed to go to her. She was failing her math class.
So I had a friend reach out to me who does have children at FCPS. I need to be a little bit vague here, but the child does have developmental disabilities, and she wasn't in social emotional learning just because of the developmental disabilities. I'm under the impression that this is happening across the county on Mondays during flex time, which is supposed to be used for studying. This child was behind in math class, and instead of being able to take that time during flex study time to study the math, they were pulled for social emotional learning where they were made to sit in a circle, kick a hacky sack around, and they were told that you're not showing empathy if you're not using the correct pronouns for your fellow classmates. And she actually ended up failing that math test. And then she even tried to pull out some work to work on her science project, and she got in trouble for it. So a child wanted to focus on academics, wanted to focus on excelling in science and math, and they were forced to focus on more of the social justice stuff and the feelings.
And
Well,
we've had a parent who testified or gave public comment at the last Board of Education meeting where he said his daughter was pulled aside for mediation for 2 hours because she used a student's birth name. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah, you want children to be nice to each other. You can't force them to be nice to each other. But why was she getting mediation for 2 hours because she used the child's birth name? That's not helping anybody.
what do you think about social emotional? Using those techniques in school. Because I was during the interview, I know Dean Rose mentioned that. I remember Ray Gallagher mentioned that in her interview that I did. And they said that that needs to be one of the biggest focuses in our education. What do you think about that?
I think it's dangerous.
I do too. I don't think the teachers are practitioners of social
Right.
emotional learning. I think it's a theory and a practice that most teachers have no idea how to apply or how to do that and teach that to children. I think it needs to be done by trained practitioners, not by teachers
Of a
you
parent's choice.
of a parent's choice, or if a parent chose to have, go to the school or the school was recommending, that social emotional learning take place or that that child would, benefit from that, sure, but not on a broad scale like it is being done right now at
How
I
are
all.
agree.
you going? How Go ahead. Eh,
I think that it adds a lot to teachers' plates, and we've already heard a lot about teachers being very overwhelmed and overworked. And I agree that teachers are not trained to be talking to these students about their emotions. If you want to get them in with a therapist, and let a parent know, like, hey, this is something that they need, then I'm all for that. And I'm not saying that social emotional learning might not be effective for some students, but I don't think that it will be effective for all students, and I don't think that it's necessary as a regular thing for every Monday during flex time.
Okay, okay. How are you going to get teachers more money and reduce class sizes?
I think the pay scale is quite fine if you've actually seen the actual data, not the propaganda. Frederick County Public Schools ranks at the very top for starting pay. We are not at the bottom. We're closer to the top. We're not even in the middle. So for what we're doing, the pay scale and the salary increases right now, especially in this economy, we're probably going to go into a recession. I don't think we should be worried about getting them more money. We should be worried about getting them more class time to teach academics.
I think that after a audit of everything, just making sure that there's not a lot of wasteful spending, that there's not a lot of the central office is quite bloated. We need to look and see if maybe there are people there who are paid a little bit too much, or if there are positions who are overlapping that may or may not be able to be eliminated before we can really decide where to reallocate the rest of those funds. I don't think asking for more money and throwing money at a problem is necessarily going to fix it. And we've talked about this a lot. We think exit interviews are very important to re-implement so that we can talk to these teachers and find out, are you leaving because of pay, or are you leaving because you're worried about safety? Are you leaving because you're worried about discipline, or because of the school environment and the school culture? And I think that we're going to find that while some might be concerned about pay, that is not the main concern of our teachers.
There was a person that wrote me and asked a question. They said, how do they plan on keeping kids safe in school? And what will they do to increase student accountability for their actions?
Well, I think Safety in Schools SRO program, we definitely stand behind. And, I would not remove that program from the school. I would not decrease that program. I would support it as is, if not expand it if we possibly could. I mean, it's not necessarily completely up to the school board to do that. That is, a state legislated program, for every Maryland school, and the funding does come at the county level. It does not come from the Frederick County Public School System. But, certainly as board members, we would stand behind SROs, and we think that that's one of the ways that safety has been maintained. I think another way, and you speak about students in particular, I think we really need to take a look at how administrators, whether they're following policy or not, whether they're enforcing the policies. If a student is misbehaving, there should be consequences for that. And I'm not saying, that every situation it's going to be across the board the same thing. I mean, you do have to take in all the variables that come into a situation, but certainly if there are discipline, policies in place, let's use them. Let's enforce them. Let's make sure that the students understand that there are consequences to their behaviors or bad behaviors, okay? And there are consequences for good behavior. So, I think that message needs to be a standard message, a universal type of standard across every single site, every single school site.
I agree with Nancy. I think it's about enforcing the policies that exist. And I think that's the main problem. If a student is misbehaving, how many opportunities does the student get to misbehave before he's asked not to return to school until, 2 or 3 days have gone by, parents are brought in? I think it's about making sure everyone is respecting everyone's right. And if there are people acting out, that there are consequences for bad behavior immediately, not for instances later. We have instances of bullying in schools where the victim is actually removed from the school and not the bully being removed from the school or getting disciplined. So there's a breakdown somewhere, and that's something that needs to be discussed more.
So we know that the Republican Party comes out a lot bigger in the general election. All right. And we saw that the numbers were pretty big for the Democrat during the primary. Has your campaigning strategy changed since you know that the Republican Party is going to come out on a bigger level? Has there been any modifications to your plan or strategy?
I'd say no. Actually, I think we have been campaigning the way we've been campaigning since day one, tell you the truth. And going back to the parties, we look at it as, we're at-large candidates. We don't represent just one sector. We represent all of Frederick County. If we're going to sit on that board, we're representing all students. We're not just representing the Republican students or the Democrat students or whatever, or, independents. I mean, we're representing every single student. So we're not looking at it to be divisive like that at all. We're campaigning, we're hitting, you know, and we're talking to everybody, you know, we were at the fair, you know, we're engaging whoever wants us to be engaged with them. You know, if you want to talk to us and you want to understand our point of view, I'm happy to talk to you. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you, but certainly we can have a conversation about, you know, what you feel might not be working. You know, great. Tell me. I want to hear it. I think every single parent out there needs to be heard, needs to have a voice. When they stand up at the Board of Ed and they have a problem, I want to hear what it is, whether I agree with them or not.
Well said.
Several people have made comments about you guys blocking them on social media, and they want to know why. I don't know. I'm not being blocked. I haven't even probably requested. I don't really request too many people, but people are up in arms.
We haven't blocked anybody. We've turned off the comments to our E&I Facebook page, and we did that because in the beginning they were open and anybody could comment. But people tend to want to be rude and not want to ask real questions. They just want to get on there and bloviate or just be nasty generally. So we decided it was just easier for us to turn off the comments. Sometimes they accidentally get left on and people can say some stuff in there, which sometimes we leave it if they're not being rude. But we haven't blocked anyone. We just turned the comments off. You can always ask us a question. And the people who are complaining about being blocked, they still have the opportunity to send us a message and ask a question, but they don't. So that tells me you really weren't interested in having a dialogue. You just wanted to get on there and just spout whatever it is you wanted to spout. So we didn't block anybody.
Okay. Why do you think that people are painting you to be like this crazy group of just radicals? Like, why is that? Why do you think people are doing that to you?